Hello and welcome to this week's Parent How-To video. I'm Karen Locke-Cope. I am a child development expert and a parent coach, and I do a lot of stuff that is pretty fun and pretty cool at WeTurnedOutOK.com. And today I wanted to talk about what your young child might be like as a teenager. I know that for me personally, when my teaching degree only goes until age 9, and so when my oldest turned 10, I got really freaked out, and I didn't know what that was going to mean in terms of like who would he be. And by the time he was 10, I'd kind of stopped worrying about it. But when he was 3 or 4, I really worried about it. And recently, I was at a gathering, actually it was a holiday gathering, and I met the mom of one of my very first students that I ever had as a preschool teacher. And I'm going to call him Roland. That is not his real name, but I don't have permission to talk about this, so I figured I would, choose a different name for him. When he was small, Roland was very adorable and very, very serious. Like he really worked hard and very deliberately at things, and he would take his time, and he would get things to look or feel exactly like he wanted. He used language really, really well, but he didn't use it. He used it fairly sparingly. He really was a little bit like reticent, but boy, when he said something, it was pretty cool. And I happened to run into his mom, and it's funny because I saw her and I thought, she looks really, really familiar. I wonder. Now I taught preschool in the same town that I grew up in, so there's a lot of opportunities for meeting people and trying to figure out where they are from whatever walk of life. And then I heard her introduced, and she was introduced, and I heard her first and last name, and I said, So I went up to her and I said, "Are you related to Roland?" And she said, "Oh my gosh, yes, I'm his mother." And it turns out he's like in his 20s now. And I said, I remember him as this really quite serious, very deliberate, adorable, adorable child. I said, "Is he still like that?" She says, he absolutely is. He's still like that. And it's just neat. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the stages of development that I learned as a college student and as a graduate student. These are really, really useful, even though they were developed many years ago, because human nature kind of doesn't change. So I wanted to explore the idea of like what similarities there are between toddlers and teenagers in today's how-to video. So the first thing I wanted to do is read. Everything I'm reading is from a website called lumenlearning.com, and this is a particular article about a guy named Erik Erikson and his stages of development. They're called the 8 stages of psychosocial development, and my focus was really on the earliest stages of development, but today I want to focus in on some that occur a little bit later into adolescence and into our 20s. So the first thing I wanted to share is that Erikson believed the following. I just think this is really, really interesting. So Erikson believed that we experience 8 stages of development over our lifespan, from intimacy through late adulthood. At each stage, there is a crisis or a task that we need to resolve. Successful completion of each developmental task results in a sense of competence and a healthy personality. Failure to master these tasks leads to feelings of inadequacy. And that's the part that really, really resonated with me. Like, we, as their parents, can help our kids come through these tasks, or we can hinder them. And if we hinder them, we can end up with kids who don't feel adequate, who don't feel like they have a say in the world or have something to contribute. And we definitely don't want that. So the first stage, which I'm just going to touch on quickly, is called basic trust versus mistrust. And this is the first 12 months of life. It is where our kids learn, I can trust that someone will help me when I am feeling sad, when I am hungry, when I am uncomfortable. And the way that they feel that, the way that they learn either to trust that there's somebody to help them or not, is whether someone is there when they need them, basically. And then the second stage is called autonomy versus shame and doubt. And this is the stage, this is the toddler years, so it's 1 to 3 years. And it's the stage where kids are working to assert their own independence. It's the stage where they do a lot of yelling of the word no, and they have temper tantrums, and they run away from us, and they throw things, and they do impulsive things because they are trying to find a way to assert their independence. Even if they can't talk yet, they still have desires, and they still have things that they want and need. And we as their parents can either help them through patient kind of sharing and helping them explore the world. We can help them resolve this positively, or we can cause them to feel ashamed of their own natural, like, development, that we can cause them to feel shame and doubt about who they are as a person. And I just wanted to read a little bit from what this article says. This is the me do it stage: autonomy versus stage and doubt versus shame and doubt. For example, we might observe a budding sense of autonomy in a 2-year-old child who wants to choose her clothes and dress herself. Although her outfits might not be appropriate for the situation, her input in such basic decisions has an effect on her sense of independence. If denied the opportunity to act on her environment, she may begin to doubt her abilities, which could lead to low self-esteem and feelings of shame. So that's the first one I really wanted to focus on. We can either, when they're 1 to 3 years old, we can be helpful in terms of giving them some independence and helping them, age appropriately, make choices and act, as they say, on their world, act on their environment. And then the next stage is called initiative versus guilt. And at this stage, kids are in preschool. It's 3 to 6 years. And what they're trying to do is take the autonomy a little bit further and do things that help them see the results of what their actions cause, right? And so we want to try and help them resolve this positively. And I will just read a little bit. According to Erickson, preschool children must resolve the task of initiative versus guilt. By learning to plan and achieve goals while interacting with others, preschool children can master this task. Initiative, a sense of ambition and responsibility, occurs when parents allow a child to explore within limits and then support the child's choice. These children will develop self-confidence and feel a sense of purpose. Those who are unsuccessful at this stage, with their initiative misfiring or stifled by over-controlling parents, may develop feelings of guilt because they still have the compulsion to act on their environment, to set goals, to try and achieve them. And this is all happening in a place that we can't really see, right? If we are too controlling, we can stop them from resolving this stage successfully. Now, I'm going to skip a little bit. I'm going to go up to ages 12 to 18, which is adolescence, because I think there's a lot of similarities between the stages in early childhood and then the stages as our kids get to be teens. And I am super sorry. This is kind of a dense one today, but I really felt like it was important to help you understand the similarities between your child as a toddler or a young child and your child as a young adult or an adolescent. And I am seeing this on the other end of the spectrum now. I've got an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old, and they are in the stages of identity versus role confusion, which is where our kids are either, according to Erickson, I will read, an adolescent's main task is developing a sense of self. And I think where that comes in is developing a sense of independence. So all along, there's been this theme of independence. Our young children who can't even talk yet are struggling to act on their environment and to have a say in their world, to be independent, to act autonomously. And they're still trying to figure that out, even in adolescence. There's a part of this that I'll get into very soon. Let me just read this last bit. When adolescents are apathetic, do not make a conscious search for identity, or are pressured to conform to their parents' ideas for the future, they may develop a weak sense of self and experience role confusion. They don't know who they are, right? They will be unsure of their identity and confused about the future. Teenagers who struggle to adopt a positive role will likely struggle to find themselves as adults. And that's what we really don't want. We want kids who know who they are and thoroughly understand themselves. And that is not an easy task to accomplish. I bet it wasn't easy for you. It certainly wasn't easy for me. And then the final stage I want to talk about today is this is in the 20s through the early 40s. It's called intimacy versus isolation. After we've developed a sense of self, I'm reading here, in adolescence, we are ready to share our life with others. However, if other stages, and this is what I really wanted to get into today, if other stages have not been successfully resolved, young adults may have trouble developing and maintaining successful relationships with others. So really, what we're doing now when our kids are really young is going to impact them over their whole lives. It's going to impact their relationships and their senses of self and their ideas of what they can do in the world. How can they act on their environment? And that is really the similarities between teens and toddlers or young people. I love the alliteration of teens to toddlers, but it's really pretty much from birth on up through the early childhood stages, and then adolescence and into the early 20s. People are trying to have a sense of that their actions matter, that what they do changes the world in some way, and acts on it in a good way. I mean, I believe that everyone wholeheartedly wants to impact the world in a positive way, and depending on how our environment shapes us, we're going to be able to fulfill that, or maybe not. So what I want you to think about today is, how can I give my toddler, my preschooler, my young child, the kind of independence, and of course it's got to be age appropriate, and it's got to be within limits, because we can't let them drive cars when they're 2 years old. We can't we can't let them use the stove without really understanding what the consequences are. We need to kind of have training wheels a little bit for those things, but we need to give them the idea that what they do matters, that how they act upon the world makes a big difference. And that is what will help them kind of grow up into healthy young adults. And so now here I am on the other end of the spectrum. And I am seeing that, yes, it's adolescence is a monumental struggle in many ways. My therapist, my own personal therapist that I see, I have been seeing him now for 4 years, more than 4 years. He, when my youngest started adolescence, he came up with this really great idea, which is, and I don't know where he got it. I think he got it from a colleague, or he read this, but basically you can think of a young child as, think of them as a finished puzzle on a table, right? It's a properly assembled puzzle. It's whole, it's beautiful, right? When adolescence happens, somebody comes along and kicks the table from the underside, all the pieces fly up into the air. They're the same pieces, but when they come back down, they are another beautiful puzzle that is assembled completely differently, and will look differently as a result, but it's still the same pieces. And yeah, so I think that's what I want to leave you with today. If you want to hear a great interview, a really great conversation with somebody who works with young adults, I recommend my conversation with Blake Boles, who's got a podcast called Off Trail Learning, and he's got he runs a company called Unschool Adventures, where he goes out into the wilds of the world with young adults, teenagers and 20-somethings, and they go and have adventures in places like Argentina and Chile and other really, really cool places. Sometimes in the US, but largely out in other places in the world. And our episode was episode 264, and you can get to it by going to weturnedoutokay.com/264, or you can just click the link in the show notes right below this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I promise next week's will be a little bit less thinky and a little bit shorter too. But anyway, if you got something out of this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button just below. If you'd share it with a friend or into a parenting group where this might resonate, that would be much, much appreciated. And if you subscribe finally, then you can you won't miss a thing. All right, thank you so much, and we will see you next week. Bye.